Well, 75 to 100 millimeters of rainfall. Western areas of New Brunswick will be looking at just some light rain. Still be looking at some stronger winds as well, but the rain threat will not be primarily issue for you. And into Labrador, we're looking at that rainfall and we are looking at snowfall as well, Kim. We could be expecting roughly 5 to 10 centimeters with Hurricane Fiona as it makes its way northward into Labrador.
Can't believe we're also talking about snow with this storm on top of everything else. But yes, it's going to be cooler temperatures. We're not going to feel the tropical temperatures that we normally would with a storm like this. It's northerly wind for many people, and that's the reason why we're going to be seeing snow in the most northern locales. Here's a look at the tropical wind probability. This storm is massive in size, so it's going to be impacting areas hundreds of kilometers outside of the center of the storm.
Exactly, like areas like Corner Brook, Sydney, even many areas of eastern Nova Scotia. In fact, they're going to be looking at over those winds gusting upwards to 140, maybe even exceeding 150 kilometers per hour wind gusts as well. Let's play out the forecast in terms of what we could be looking at. So continuing into our evening hours, we did see some stronger winds today. They are going to start to ramp up as we get towards midnight, almost to 100 kilometers per hour wind gusts, and then continuing as Hurricane Fiona starts to make landfall into the pre-dawn hours. We'll start to ramp up with those winds gusting upwards to 140, 145 as well. But I did mention areas like western New Brunswick. We'll see some strong winds, but not as strong as areas that are right over landfall. Areas like Burgeo as well, St. Lawrence, looking at those stronger winds as well into the overnight.
Our storm chaser Jacqueline Whittle is in the field as well. We're going to go to Prince Edward Island. That's where she is stationed throughout the storm, where we're expecting winds gusting to 140 kilometers per hour on Saturday morning. Jacqueline is no stranger to covering storms like this, although it's been a few years, obviously, because of COVID. But Jacqueline, tell me what you're seeing and hearing ahead of this storm. It's already, it's picking up a little bit, despite the fact that it's still hundreds of kilometers away.
Yeah, you bet, Kim. Nice to speak with both of you. We're looking at some rain that's starting to intensify, and the winds are all of a sudden picking up. It doesn't feel like much, but I can tell you that it's a little bit of a chilly breeze, so I can't imagine 140 kilometer an hour gusts are coming out of the north. And I heard you speaking sort of off air here in the stream, about the snow that's attached to this. You get a deep trough like this behind the system that merges with the tropical system. You're bringing in colder air, as you said, and that's going to be lousy. So anybody that's out in any of these conditions, there's a lot of media out here covering it. It's going to be difficult that way. But aside from my situation, let's talk about the locals. You can see the big yacht behind me here. This has been brought in as a result of the storm, naturally, but that's a large craft. So somebody's actually put that on a trailer. We had a chance to speak to a couple pleasure craft boater owners that are actually, believe it or not, Kim, riding the storm out in their boat. Right behind me, actually, there's a little inlet here. So if you can imagine, like, Nova Scotia's this way, and the north is this way, and so the winds are actually going to be kind of protecting, I should say the harbor is going to be kind of protecting the boats from the strong northerly winds. So they're actually tucked in there, and they're going to be sleeping in their beds in their boat. But like, they've been doing this for years, so they've ridden out things like Dorian and Ida and Larry, and of course Juan. Everybody talks about Juan here, Kim, and there's so much to get into. Where do you even begin, right?
Right, and we can compare this storm to Juan, but this is a much larger in scope storm. Juan obviously was a very powerful storm affecting a smaller area, but Fiona is going to touch many more people.
That's right. Purely based on the size of it, number one, the wind field is going to extend so far out from the center of the hurricane that even if you're nowhere near that eye and the center of the hurricane, you're still getting intense winds on PI. Now, I have a lot of concerns for, say, the north shore of PI because it's very flat. We're going to get a lot of piling up of that water, and that storm surge is going to be something to really write home about. And I hope people are taking that part of the storm seriously. It's one thing to have the winds, but that winds and the momentum around the hurricane, that counterclockwise flow bringing in that north wind, that's going to pile up that ocean water north of PEI for hours, just relentlessly piling up that water. So flooding, a main concern here because it is so flat. You know, and then of course the trees. Downtown Charlottetown is so beautiful. We've been driving around. It reminds me a lot of a hurricane that I chased called Hurricane Florence in Wilmington, North Carolina. It was like this, a lot of old trees in the downtown core. And I'll tell you, it was a Category 1 storm. After that hurricane, there were a lot of trees down, and I mean old trees, a lot of damage. So I fear the worst. I hope I'm wrong. Lots of people are prepared. Lots of people have emergency kits prepared just in case they're without power for days. We also have emergency kits with us and food supplies, etc. But I mean, it feels like a Gulf of Mexico kind of landfall for us here on the east coast of Canada.
It does, and I'm glad we have your expertise out there, and that you're not going in here out there with eyes closed. You've been through things like this before, but I don't know how many Maritimers have been through this kind of storm. I know that they're used to big storms, but this might top what they've seen in the past.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, these they don't make them any tougher, right, than Atlantic Canadians.
True.
You know, and they would say that too. And you're right. They're no stranger to 100, 120 kilometer an hour gusts. You know, certainly here on PEI, Cape Breton Island, even more so. But when you talk about the duration of this event, and I know you guys have been probably hitting home on this for hours, and I want to reiterate it again. You know, you get a hurricane that's Cat 2, Cat 3, for example, in the Gulf of Mexico or in Florida, and it rolls through rather quickly. Well, it's got real strong winds, but it's like a little, you know, buzzsaw that goes through.
1, 2, 3, testing. Testing the sound. Okay. It's good?